Cool. So yeah, we have a couple of ones. We have a maybe, a 1.5, 1, 1. Okay, great. So hopefully that this presentation helps you get some clarity on that for sure. So if you haven't microdosed mushrooms, write this down. You can put it in the chat or on a scrap piece of paper next to you or on your computer. What's stopping you from improving your life or yourself through microdosing? Panic attacks, legalities, access. So it's funny, Tomas or Thomas, sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. But part of my background is that I suffered from very debilitating panic attacks. I had very bad anxiety attacks that landed me in the hospital. I was stuck in my bed for months. And this was around the age of 21. And part of my story is I was on SSRIs for about 8 or 9 years to just like function and to not have panic attacks. And about 7 years ago, I stopped taking my SSRIs and I actually started working with psychedelics therapeutically with my therapist. And for the past 7 years, through a combination of different modalities, not just psychedelics, I haven't had panic attacks that have debilitated me or put me in the hospital. I still get anxiety. It's very normal. We all get anxiety. But I can definitely relate to the panic attacks. So does this sound like you? I don't know where to start. It's too complicated. I'm worried about what people will say or think. Isn't it illegal? I'm scared of what might happen. I don't have time. These are all very true things. And we'll talk about a lot of these things today. But if this sounds like you, and sounds like, some of y'all can relate, again, put a one in the chat. Let me know, like, what's present for you? What do you need for getting more curious about during this talk and what I can provide for you? So what we'll learn today: what are magic mushrooms, safety and contraindications, measurements, dosages, intention setting, protocols, how to make your own, finding a bridge between the science and the spiritual, and transformation and growth. Some more background on me. In 2003, I had my first life-changing psychedelic experience. In 2008, I graduated college with a degree in film production, and I suffered debilitating panic attacks, and I was prescribed SSRIs. In 2016, I weaned myself off of SSRIs very slowly over a period of about 2 or 3 years. And I began to explore psychedelics with my therapist and as well as community members. In 2020, I got burnt out from film production, working 80 hours a week. I pushed the pause button and I said, I gotta find something new to do. So today, I'm the founder of Brooklyn Balance LLC. I'm the co-founder for a nonprofit for unionizing commercials. I've done various MAP trainings. I graduated from TAM Integration, a 12-month coaching program. And I've moved full-time into doing psychedelic integration in conjunction with the union that I'm also a part of. So this is my class over here on the right, and then on the upper right-hand side, that was me at the MAPS conference in Denver this past June, ironing my t-shirt. Real people, real results. So these are some kind words from clients. I came to Brooklyn Balance and Josh due to suffering from continuous treatment-resistant depression. I've suffered with depression for most of my adult life. I'm 60. I've been on most of well-known antidepressants as well as some not well-known. I've continued to notice a substantial reduction in depressive symptoms. This is quite remarkable since I've been on medication most of my adult life. So I love checking in with this person. This person's doing quite well. We worked together for a short period of time. And yeah, it just makes me really happy to know that like they're in a better place today. Someone else said, other than an emergency appendectomy in 1995, I don't think anything has impacted my well-being so much. Here's some basics and know-how to discern if microdosing is a good fit for you or someone you know and what it might look like. So starting out, what are psilocybin mushrooms? So psilocybin mushrooms are commonly known as magic mushrooms or shrooms. They're a fungi. They grow naturally all over the world, and they've been used for thousands of years by humans. And if you live in an area that has woods or forest, just walking around simply, you might be able to find some. Psilocybin mushrooms are a classic psychedelic, and their mind-altering effects can last 2 to 8 hours. And that can also depend on the dose as well. So with a microdose, it airs on the much lower side. It would be incredibly difficult to overdose on psilocybin mushrooms. For that even to be considered, over 2.6 pounds of dried mushroom would have to be eaten. I'm just hearing somebody. I'm going to try to mute them. Cool. So it would be incredibly difficult to overdose on psilocybin mushrooms. So they're pretty safe in terms of like toxicity. Eating 2.5 pounds of mushrooms would be an extremely, extremely difficult challenge. So this is a study based done by neuropsychopharmacologist. Sorry, I'm saying that probably not correctly. Neuropsychopharmacologist David Nutt, and it's on harm caused by substances. So if we look at mushrooms down here, we see that they're anti-addictive in their nature, and everything up above has the highest harm to others or to the user. And also to note, like more and more in the news, there is more and more research and data coming out about mushrooms all the time. So down here, those are a few universities and schools that are conducting research every day. And I love hearing the reports out of what come out of them. So some positive effects of psilocybin. Yeah, we've all heard the rumors, and more the data comes out. The research is showing that psychedelics can make you feel more connected with nature. They can help with depression. And some of the ways that works too is by activating neurogenesis in the hippocampal. And what that will do is help eliminate fear in the mind. And so when we feel less fearful, we're able to drop into more courage and kindness. And with more courage and kindness, we're able to be better citizens, we're able to be better leaders, we're able to be better parents, better friends, and we're able to vibrate that energy throughout into the world. So these are just things that are like pluses with coming to using psilocybin. Down here on the lower left, this is an fMRI study, and it shows an analysis of one person that was given a placebo with the neural pathways that were generated in their brain. And then with this fMRI, shows all of these new neural pathways that were being constructed during their experience. So what does that mean? It means, put a 1 in the chat if you've heard of neuroplasticity. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so neuroplasticity is growing new neural pathways. So our brains are like sponges. And when we're babies and we're in our adolescence, we're able to learn new things really well, easier. And as we get old, we have less and less of that neuroplasticity. So psilocybin helps encourage neuroplasticity. And when we get that neuroplasticity, we're able to work with it to train ourselves and to learn new things, to learn new habits, and to help us remove old habits that no longer serve us. So if you go on Google and if you type in, what is microdosing? The first thing that comes up is the action or practice of taking or administrating very small amounts of a drug in order to test or benefit from its physiological action while minimizing undesirable side effects. It's kind of a mouthful, right? So the effects of psilocybin with anything more than a microdose may have really strong effects and largely impact your capacity to function, make decisions, and move. So one of the key things about psilocybin is that it compounds, and microdosing can be a very effective way for some people to take in its benefits. So when I say it compounds, it means like it stays in your system, but you can also build up a tolerance to it. So for example, if I were to take 1 gram today and then a week later another gram, that gram is not going to be as strong for me. So putting time in between is very important, and we're going to talk about that with protocols as well. Paul Stamets says a microdose is defined as being below the threshold of a sensorium effect. So in that regard, it means that we're not entering an altered state. We're not seeing things, we're not hearing things. We're not really feeling like light and ambient feelings. We're feeling normal. So there are risks associated with psilocybin and even with microdosing psilocybin. So the first thing is behavioral risk. And that's like if you're figuring out what the right dosage is for you. If you take too much, you could enter a little bit of an altered state. And if you're not in the right state of mind or at the right place or with the right people, it can bring on things like anxiety, fear. It might make you feel very unsettled, for sure. And then with large doses, you can go into a really deep altered state, and you might perceive things that aren't actually your reality. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to work with a professional, but also to have somebody, even just a friend, if you are going to take psilocybin in large doses of it at any point. There is something called HPPD, hallucinogen persisting perception disorder. So one of the risks with taking like many doses of psilocybin, potentially even though one, is that you can potentially see things that might continue even after your experience, and that can stay with some people for years. There's a lot of really interesting information out there about that, but it is very, very rare. And there's ways to feel into who might be more susceptible to HPPD. With large doses of psilocybin or small ones, you can have a challenging experience, also known as, formerly known as a bad trip. It's not recommended to take psilocybin if you have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder or if you have schizophrenic tendencies. It can be dangerous to take psilocybin with warfarin, digoxin, lithium, and then there are risks as well if you are on SSRIs, SNRIs, serotogenic migraine medications, and antipsychotics. Feel free to take a screenshot of this, and if you ever want to speak with a doctor, these two doctors listed down here, Ben Malcolm and Dr. Saad, are excellent. So, when it comes to dosage by gram, this chart really gives a good indication for microdosing and what a proper dose would look like. And so there's different doses for different people. So on the low end would be like 0.05 grams. And that's typically like what I would recommend for someone to start with. And if someone's like, I don't feel anything, I'm like, great. Like, you're not supposed to feel anything. And give it some time, see what happens. And then moving up from there too, like very slowly and very gradually. So going from 0.05 to 0.1 to 0.15, so on. And typically most people feel a bit of the perceptual effects after 0.3 grams. Some people might feel them at 0.2, some people might even feel them at 0.1. I think the thing when it comes to me with working with psychedelics is that everything is very individualized. Nothing is cookie cutter. And I think a big red flag to look out for is if someone says like, you should do 0.1 grams, or you should be doing that, or this is the right way to do it. I don't agree with that. There are even people that can take 5 grams of mushrooms and not feel anything. And I know some of those people, and it's really interesting to like talk to them. So one of the most well-known protocols is the Fadiman protocol. Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard of this protocol, or if you've heard of the creator James Fadiman. Leslie, cool. Dan, cool. Cool. So it sounds like this is new for most of the people here. So the Fadiman protocol basically is dosing on the first day and then down for 2. And so the reason for that is we dose, we feel the effects the next day, and then the day after, we feel the effects without it. The idea is that the dose has left our system. And so that third day gives us time to integrate. And it allows us to just process what is happening with us. And then we dose again on the 4th day and repeat. There is the Stamets protocol. Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard of the Stamets protocol, created by Paul Stamets. Cool. Okay, not as many people. So yeah, the Stamets protocol is basically dosing 4 days in a row and then down for 3 days. And there's other protocols too. There are people that just microdose once a week. There are people that microdose once every 2 weeks or once a month. It's like what works best for you. But these two protocols are the most well known in the psychedelic space, and they're used for different intentions. So when I'm talking with people, and if they're asking like, what do you think the right protocol for me is, I'll give them this information. I'll say like, well, what do you think the right protocol is for you? But I'll educate them on what the effects of each one might have on their day-to-day life. Yeah, it's not a good idea to like microdose and then drive. And so not everyone can microdose 4 days in a row. So yeah, a few people in the beginning said like, oh, I don't know where to get shrooms or access to it. So you can grow your own shrooms. And they're really easy to grow. So put a 1 in the chat if you're here and you've ever grown your own shrooms. I know there's one person here that has. Okay, cool. Yeah. So if you go like on the internet, there's lots of places that sell spores and kits for growing mushrooms. And the spores are legal. It's the selling of mushrooms that are illegal. But to buy your own spores before they're actually psilocybin, that's legal. And there's many websites that do that. And so there's lots of YouTube videos. There's lots of like grow kits that you can buy. I think a popular one is Grow Plus One or Grow Plus. Yeah, birthday cake. There are people that forage for mushrooms because they do grow naturally all over the world. So I do know people that go out into forests and they find mushrooms, they dehydrate them, and then they take them. So when you grow your mushrooms and you cultivate them and they're ready for consumption, do the math. If you want to make 0.1 gram doses, 1 gram will make you 10 doses. And so, and yeah, I say like go low and go slow. So you can put them in a coffee grinder, grind them up really fine. You can buy capsules, and I use a tiny funnel to pour it into the capsule. And then there are some people that just put it into a smoothie. There's some people that put it on their sandwich. And there's some people that just eat it on their own, just nibble it. Everyone's different, and it's what works best for you. A 1/16th and 1/8 teaspoon, it can help for making the measuring easier. You'll need a digital scale that can measure out micrograms. You can buy them on Amazon. I think some hardware stores sell them. Walmart, hopefully some mom and pop stores out there. If you're in Glasgow, I imagine there's like a science community that might be able to point you the way, or an Amazon similar website. And while it's not necessary, some people do like to add lion's mane and niacin to their capsules. And the reason for that is lion's mane and niacin are known for helping the brain function and for helping the nervous system. So adding those in with your microdoses may be beneficial to you. So yeah, different strokes for different folks. When it comes to the protocols, I can speak for myself personally. I've done throughout the past 7 years, I've done some protocols that have been just a week long, and I've done some protocols that have been 6 weeks long. What's really important is to take breaks. Psilocybin, you build up a tolerance to it, but you don't want to get into a dependence with it. Psilocybin is not addictive, but like anything, it can be habit forming. We can get dependent on things. So it's important to set boundaries for yourself and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. I'm going to try to do this for a week, or I'm going to try to do this for 8 weeks. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to take a break for 3 months. I highly recommend it. I highly encourage always taking breaks in between. And the longer, the better. There are certain psychedelics that I will only do once a year or once every 2 years. When it comes to mushrooms and myself, I take mushrooms maybe just once every 3 months. People look at me and they're like, oh, this guy takes mushrooms all the time. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm like, I've learned a lot over the years, and it's like less is more for me. So don't drive or operate heavy machinery after dosing because you might be sensitive. Uh, I like to just relax or go for a walk, take a hike. If you have a cat, pet your cat, walk your dog. Keep it simple. Maybe do some drawing, maybe do some journaling. Take it in the morning, and that way its effects are felt throughout the day. And build a relationship with the spirit. What do I mean by that? I mean, like, keep it sacred. Um, Put intention into it, and that will be coming up soon in another slide. And when I say intention, it's talking. I like to talk to the mushrooms. I like to be like, hey, like, how can I be my best self today? Or how can I call in more peace or ease into my life? And I'll sit and I'll meditate with the mushrooms for a moment before I welcome them into my body. So yeah, asking yourself, why are you choosing the microdose? What other parts of your life are you looking to focus on improving to better yourself, to improve your quality of life? What are you calling in? What are you releasing? And keep it sacred. So what are you calling in and what are you releasing? Those are two of my favorite parts of psychedelic integration. Calling in, like, so for me, I've been calling in more ease into my life. Working in the film industry was very difficult. It was very challenging. There was a lot of toxicity. There was a lot of bureaucracy. There was a lot of anxiety, egos, personalities. And it made things difficult. And today, moving forward, it's, well, how can I bring ease into my life? How can I flow with things? And how can I also accept? And so, how can I connect with things and just have a mindset in which I'm viewing things easier? Um, my film company has been wrongly named in a lawsuit, and I approached it with ease. And because I'm approaching it with such ease and relaxation, it's going away so easily and so quick. I'm not saying that's the same thing that might happen to you in a situation with you, but when I'm talking to people, I'm letting them know I trust you and I feel like this is a very easeful situation. And when they hear that tonality in my voice, it makes them feel more ease, more easiness. And it helps them feel calmer. And because they're feeling calmer, the situation is just dissipating much more swiftly than it would maybe a few years ago for me. What are you releasing? Are you releasing insecurity? Are you releasing hesitation? Are you releasing parts of you that no longer serve you, things from the past? Meditation, prayer are really good ways for contemplating these things and for deepening our thoughts when we're working with mushrooms. Um, it can help us feel connected, and it can also help us dive into what's true for us in the senses of bettering ourselves. So, what habits are you looking to build? What habits are you looking to change? These are things to move forward towards. And so, what needs to be put in place, and how can you do that? Whether it's continuing education courses, working with a teacher, taking a workshop. There is someone I know that is learning the guitar. They're 50 years old and they are taking lessons twice a week and they're learning the guitar and they're doing just really, really great. And it's like, I've heard from so many people like, oh, I'm too old to do that. And what I've really learned from various experiences, and this is not just with psychedelics, it's in anything in general that we put our mind to, that if you dream it, you can be it. And like, I feel a little corny when I say that because my high school coach would say that to me. But today I really see it. And that is something I'm really trying to like radiate and vibrate myself. Um, whether you use psychedelics or not. Practicing gratitude is a really great method and technique. Baby steps, just going slow, nature walks and hiking. Put a one in the chat if you are a fan of nature or hiking, and if you have been able to incorporate that into your daily life or weekly life for helping yourself. I think the pandemic might have really influenced us with that a lot. Yeah, cool. Um, avoid the news and screens. We live in a society that's very addicted to our cell phones and computers, and right now we're all on screens. Um, but I set wellness timers for me. After like a half hour, an hour, social media, I can't access it. And I say avoid the news because it's important to know what's going on in the world, but there's so much of it. And many years ago, when we lived in tribes, we got our news just when the news came to us. And even before the internet, we were reading the newspaper once a day or once a week and just taking it in as we could. So social media and the 24 news hour cycle is really bombarding us with tons and tons of information. And if we're looking to grow and if we're looking to transform ourselves, it's important to focus on where we put our attention and why we're putting our attention on those things. Because what we look at and where we put our attention is what we're taking in for our mind. And that's what we're going to grow into. Yoga, dance, hiking, tai chi, qigong, working out. Those are great practices, like any of those and more. Yeah, if you love swimming, if you love running, if you like rock climbing, like moving the body is really important. And these are, I know it just might sound like I'm preaching wellness here, but this is all a part of microdosing mushrooms and using them with intention for growing ourselves. More nature, avoiding the news, wellness, acupuncture, chiropractic adjustments, meditation, and breath work. Put a one in the chat if you do breath work. Cool. Dope. So breath work is really, really great. For anyone that's not familiar with breath work is for me a natural psychedelic. Um, Yeah, it's just breathing. It's just different ways for breathing and taking in oxygen. But when we do it enough, we can have really profound experiences and it can feel very psychedelic. And breathwork is a really great modality for learning how to journey if you're new to journey. Um, yeah, finding ways for grounding and discharging techniques. So when I say grounding, I think of like connecting to the earth, earthing, walking around in the grass with our shoes off, um, or like lying on a rock, whatever we find useful for us. Discharging. I find dance very discharging. I find like moving and shaking my body very discharging. I'm an avid five rhythms dancer. So if you're ever in New York City and you want to hang out and you want to go dancing, I will take you to five rhythms dancing. And it's very, very discharging. And it's a really, really amazing technique for just bringing more goodness into our lives. And I'm absolutely a big fan of it. So if you're in Glasgow, maybe there's some five rhythms there that you could check out. Eating well and eating nourishing foods, taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, not eating too much, not eating too little, maybe taking vitamin supplements. This is all a part of moving forward in transforming yourself with microdosing psilocybin if you choose to like move towards the benefits of it. And then lastly on here is therapy. And yeah, therapies therapy is a really vital part of bettering ourselves. And so when we are working with mushrooms, things might come up for us and we might need support. So whether support looks like a friend, a coach, a therapist, peer support, your community, psychedelic integration circles, having ways for supporting yourself is really important if things come up. There are some times where things can get worse before they get better. Um, and it's important not to feel alone and isolated during those times. So putting things in place before you choose to go on a journey like this is very important. Go slow. Give yourself time to integrate. Be aware of chasing peak experiences. So what do I mean when I say chasing peak experiences? There are people that are just constantly looking for the next thing. I want to do this. I want to do that workshop. I heard ayahuasca is amazing. I heard San Pedro is amazing. I heard mushrooms are amazing. I want to do this. And it's just weekend after day, or month after month. People are looking for the next thing. And when we talk about presence, one of the key things with presence is stillness and just being still and doing nothing. Something I like to do is just lie on the couch and stare at the ceiling and do nothing. And it's amazing. And it's amazing because I'm doing nothing. And it feels so good to me too, because there were many times in my life where I could not do nothing, where I was so busy or I had my hands full. So me personally, I'm very grateful that I have opportunities to find stillness and to just be with the nothing. And I'll say, like, transformation is possible with determination and time. It just, some people, things can happen quicker, some things can happen shorter. I'm sorry, quicker or longer. Some people can change in a year and some people can change in 5 weeks. And so, yeah, this was, I hope this was an enjoyable talk and we're going to move into the Q&A. But this is my website where you can learn more about me. And I offer free 20-minute discovery calls. And I really do spend a fair amount of time with people before I move into working with them. But also, I'm happy to give out advice, suggestions. There are resources listed on my website. And yeah, if, I know this was just like a very quick microdosing one-on-one, and we're going to get to the Q&A. And I know it's not like I was like demonstrating how to actually make the capsules or anything. That would actually just take a lot more time. But like, yeah, I'm curious about what other questions are out there and such. So I see one question in the chat. We can start with this, and if you'd like, you can raise your hand using the button on the bottom, and I can call on you and we can answer some questions. Happy to start with this one from YY. So YY, this relates to a question I have. Why is microdosing thought to be better for healing, introspection than regular dosing? Real question, is it purposefully taking the peak experience out of it? So, well, that's a really good question. YY, I'm curious if you're open to turning your camera on so like I can answer straight to you. And we can maybe just converse about this for a moment. If not, totally cool. Okay, no worries. So I'm gonna start with peak experience chasing doesn't necessarily mean like a large dose. Peak experience chasing could be someone saying like, I need to go to Burning Man. And after I'm at Burning Man, I need to go to another Burning Man event. And then I need to go and travel to New Zealand and have an adventure there. So peak experience chasing is more just like about always having to be doing something, looking for the next thing. So microdosing could be a peak experience chasing thing, as well as a large dose. And then there are some people that when it comes to like larger doses, it's like, I want to take a bigger dose. I want to take a larger dose. I want to move into this. I want to combine this psychedelic with that psychedelic. It really all depends. Microdosing, I think, will allow, because of the protocols, will allow more stillness and allow more of a slower pace to happen. And because the protocols you can do for 1 week or 8 weeks, it takes up more time, and therefore there's less of a rush to it. Your other question is why is microdosing thought to be better for healing? It depends on all people. My answer for that is because more and more data and more science and more research studies are coming out about psilocybin specifically, as well as studies specific for microdosing, we're actually having real data that reflects the benefits for it. And because we're seeing that data and we're hearing about that data, this is becoming more of a popular thing for healing. So microdosing's been around for a long, long time. But because there's lots more studies happening with the universities and research studies, we're hearing more about it, and it's being looked at as a good way for healing. And when it comes to healing specifically, I would like to say that like the mushrooms don't heal you and the person you work with doesn't heal you. You're doing the healing yourself, and you're doing the healing yourself by doing the work that you want to do or need to do for yourself. And so you're moving yourself through that process and through that energy. Was that helpful? Does that answer your question? Cool. Okay, I'm just checking the chat. Ronald asks, can you recommend a specific online source to order mushroom growing kits? There is a website called tripsitters.org, and if you explore that website, they have tons of information on it. And there is one that says for growers, and there's tons and tons of information here about it. And if you scroll down, it will list everything. And depending on where you are, what state you're in, who delivers for you, or what country you're in, will determine like what's best for you. But on this website, they give really good guidance for growing your own, as well as links to where you can purchase spores. Any programs or certifications for clinicians to incorporate this into their practice once it becomes legal in my state, of course. Yeah, Shonda, is that how you pronounce your name? So there's lots of good programs. So I studied with TAM integration. I did a 12-month long program, and we collaborated with doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists. I work with ketamine here in Brooklyn at a psychiatrist's office, and the psychiatrist will prescribe the ketamine, and we will journey at their office. So ketamine is a good way to get introduced to working with the medicines. I found there to be a residual calming effect many months after a larger dose trip. Yeah, that too. Oh, but there's also there's Third Wave, and there's also CIS programs as well that do trainings. And we can talk more about that too. If you want to schedule a discovery call with me, we can talk more about trainings. I can look more into it for you and ask around. Cool. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat. In Georgia, we're slow with everything. Yeah. But slow can be good. Have I had a bad experience? Christy, yes. I've had a few bad experiences. I did a TikTok video recently talking about one. I took mushrooms at a Fish concert at Madison Square Garden, and somebody bumped into me, and I went into a negative thought loop. So what does that mean? It's like I was just thinking a lot about negative thoughts, and they were getting very stuck in my mind. It was a very challenging experience, and it actually took me a couple of months to get over. But I've learned a lot from it, and I bring that experience into my work here today. And I'm very vocal about it, which is why I talk a lot about set and setting. So that experience was about 6 or 7 years ago. And obviously I was not working with psilocybin in a intentional or therapeutic way. So that was an experience. In terms of when I've worked with it in intentional and Um, Therapeutic experience, it's always been positive. It can be very emotional. There can be a lot of laughing, there can be a lot of crying, but it's in a positive way. When it comes to, and that's what large doses, with microdoses, there is a like meme Instagram thing that's called "That Wasn't a Microdose." So it's important, really, less is more. And one time there was a new type of mushroom that I tried to microdose, and I did microdose it, and it was very powerful, and it came on much stronger than I expected. And it caused me to have a little bit of anxiety, but it passed. And if that ever happens to you, breathing is a really good technique for calming yourself down. Our breath is like a brake and accelerator. So just like breathing into it, breathe faster, it will intensify. If you breathe long and slow, it will calm you down. I've had a couple of other bad experiences too, but one to name was with a facilitator. I was in Arizona working with a facilitator with ayahuasca, and she kind of went batshit crazy on me during our time working together. And that was a pretty bad experience. And that's also why I'm very vocal about who you work with is very important. Get referrals. Shonda asks, do you feel it brought up something you needed to heal, Josh? The concert. I don't think the concert brought up anything I needed to heal, but I believe it brought up a reality for me, like kind of a cruel awakening of the world that we live in and how things really are. So for me, it was a really, really big wake-up call about capitalism and the effects of capitalism. As well, I had sort of wake-up calls about the impacts of slavery and segregation, and the effects of it in our society today. And so those are experiences that I'm still integrating. Do you have any advice for using along with MS, autoimmune disease? I'm looking to explore healing of trauma, which I have read can trigger autoimmune diseases and rebalancing if this is an issue. I've been messaging you on direct. So, Lauren, this is a really good question. I don't have an answer for you on this. You're welcome to email me or schedule a discovery call. We can talk more in depth about it, and I can see if I can learn more about it or find someone who does have experience that can give you proper guidance on that. Anyone else? Cool. Thanks, Dan. I'll see you at 5 Rhythms. Okay. So we can end here. Love doing things nice and short. I think you all have my contact information. Again, I offer free discovery calls. Happy to talk more. There's lots of events happening in New York City this week for New York Psychedelic Week. And looking forward to seeing you all around. Have a great rest of your day. I invite you to turn on your cameras and unmute yourselves and say goodbye.
Hi.
Bye.
I'm at work. I'm gonna turn my badge around. Hey, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for coming,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye.
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 Bye.